As we reported earlier, the Supreme Court says Virginia can continue with removing about 1,600 people from its voter roll in what the state's Republican governor says is an effort to stop non-citizens from voting. CBS News election law expert and political contributor David Becker joins me now. He's also the executive director of the Center for Election Innovation and Research. David, good to see you. As we've reported, Virginia launched this voter removal program in August. This was exactly 90 days before Election Day. As you know, the National Voter Registration Act requires states to complete these types of programs up to 90 days before federal elections. Then, on the other hand, Virginia says this is to remove people who couldn't verify citizenship to the DMV. We know federal law prohibits non-citizens from voting in federal elections. Do we know for sure these purged voters are non-citizens?
We actually know for sure that some of them are citizens. That came out in the district court proceedings, where the district court enjoined the state from continuing with this process, and the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld that. The Supreme Court ultimately allowed this process to go forward. These 1,600 voters, including apparently some that are citizens, will apparently be flagged, removed from the list. Now, it should be noted also, Virginia does have same-day registration. People who are citizens and otherwise eligible can go and register on the same day and still cast a ballot. We don't know for sure what the rationale here was with the Supreme Court. This did involve a federal statute, so federal statute interpretation usually resides with the Supreme Court. So I don't know that we should read too much into this one way or the other, although we should note it was apparently a decision in which the three democratically appointed justices all dissented.
In a different case, the Trump campaign says it is suing Pennsylvania over its mail ballot voting on demand process, where voters can request a mail-in ballot in person, fill it out, and return it all in about 10 minutes. The Trump campaign, though, was claiming the state engaged in voter suppression by blocking the line during the last day of on-demand voting. What happened, and is there merit to this legal battle?
So what appears to have happened in one county, Bucks County, I believe, there was an overwhelming demand on the last day of requesting a mail ballot at the election office, filling out the mail ballot and returning it on the same day. And so that one county decided to restrict some of the voters later in the day from returning their ballot the same day because they just had too much of a demand. My understanding is that's legal under Pennsylvania law, but it's also true that most other counties, if not all other counties, were allowing that process to be continued all on the same day. I think, this is, if it's done equally with regard to whoever is voting, the opportunity to cast ballots easily, certainly in one stop, is a good thing. I think the facts of this are still going to be played out in court, but ultimately it's not an issue of fraud or voter suppression in any way. It's very likely all of these people are still going to be able to vote regardless of who they choose to vote for.
From now until Election Day, millions of people will vote in person at polling sites. What should people know about what is or isn't allowed at polling places? How far can observers be? How close? What are they allowed to ask?
So in almost every state, there's a line, an electioneering line, beyond which people can't campaign. Often they can't wear campaign materials or campaign shirts or anything that might potentially intimidate or threaten voters in a polling place. Outside of that line, as we know, when we go vote in person, there's often a lot of people outside of that line who are handing us literature and other things, and that's totally fine. In general, when you go into a polling place, you just have respect for your fellow voters. You should know you probably shouldn't be wearing any campaign clothing or anything like that. Just go in, cast your ballot, and when you get outside of the space outside the polling place, and you'll see it clearly indicated, feel free to go ahead and express your First Amendment rights, as you always are.
What if an observer goes up to somebody and asks if they have a legitimate right to vote, if they're legally in the country, et cetera? What kind of questions are observers allowed to ask?
So to be clear, observers do not have the right to intimidate or interfere with individuals who are voting. They have no right to ask questions or get in the way of voters who are exercising their fundamental constitutional right to vote. If a voter experiences something like that, and we should be clear, there have been 55 million people who've already cast a ballot, and we have heard no reports of this in any way in any of the states to this point. So people have been voting conveniently and safely. But if it does happen in some place, it's not allowed. Go up to a poll worker. The poll workers work for you, the voters. They work for the county, and they will assist you and make sure that you'll be able to vote safely. But again, I want to stress, we haven't seen anything out there that should make any voters feel unsafe, with 55+ million voters having already cast a ballot.
If people are still holding on to their mail-in ballots, is it too late to send them in?
Oh, it's definitely not too late to return them, but I wouldn't return them by mail at this point, 6 days out from the election. It's probably better if you have a mail ballot and you want to return that mail ballot, go deliver it to a drop box, deliver it to an election office in person so the election officials have it. And you can even return them to voting sites, either early voting sites, or if you go vote on election day, if you have a mail ballot, you can go to an early voting site and either they'll take it, or in some cases, they'll take your ballot and surrender it, mark it as spoiled, and allow you to vote in person there. But those are all good options if you still have your mail ballot. I would probably suggest mailing the ballot back in is not the best practice right now, given it's 6 days out.
David Becker, thank you.
Thank you.